Welcome back to another Flow Designs install video, guys. I'm Steve from Exclusive Wraps. Today we're going to be installing a full flow kit onto our new Kona N. Rightio, so the first thing we're going to install on the Kona N is the rear spats and winglets. So the tools you're going to need to install the spats and winglets are a drill and an 8mm drill bit, a flathead screwdriver or a trim removal tool, a 4mm Allen key or an Allen key bit in a screwdriver, 10mm ratchet spanner, and this is handy to have but not necessary, is a little right angle ratcheting screwdriver with a Phillips head bit. Clamps are handy as well. First thing we're going to do is remove these two clips here under the rear bumper using your screwdriver or a trim removal tool, like so. That's going to give you access to the inside of the bumper. This is where the ratcheting spanner with a Phillips bit is somewhat handy. We have two Phillips head screws here. If you remove these, it gives you a little bit of extra access underneath the guard liner. Alright. Now when we're attaching the rear spat, you want to line up this outer edge here with the corresponding edge on the rear bumper, like so. And also the underside curving edge following the underside of the rear bumper. Use your clamps here to hold it in place before you drill the holes. So take your 8mm drill bit and drill in your 3 holes. All right, with the holes drilled, we can take our nut, bolt, and washer combos and start putting them in place. Remember to only tighten the fasteners loosely, so there's a little bit of room to play and adjust as required. Now, if you've optioned the spats, don't forget you need to put these in at the same time as the bolts that hold the spat in place. Now that all the bolts are in just loosely, this is the time when you can adjust your winglets, whether you want them all the way out, all the way in, or something in between. So now it's time to reinsert the plastic undertray clips. What you might find is, depending on how far out you've put your winglet, it may cover the hole that this clip goes in. So what you might need to do is reach in, loosen that winglet, pull it out of the way a little bit, put that clip back in, and then retighten up the winglet. Finally, reattach the 2 Phillips head screws from the wheel arch and we're done. Next up, guys, we're going to install the Flow-Lock rear diffuser. The tools you're going to need to install this diffuser are your drill and 8mm drill bit, 10mm ratchet spanner, 4mm Allen key or driver, 2 clamps ideally, and some masking tape. First thing we're going to do is take the diffuser fins and insert them into the corresponding slots. You'll notice they're all labeled L4, L3, L2, L1, and R1, R2, R3, R4. Make sure you put the correct ones in the correct slot or they won't fit. However, in this case, we're actually going to flip them so that we will get the glossy side facing out as opposed to the textured side. Next, take a bit of masking tape and mask off beside each fin to avoid scratching the panel when installing the diffuser. Next, we're going to take our clamps, mount our diffuser like so, and make sure that the spacing is equal amongst all the fins and clamp it in place. With the diffuser clamped in place, we can now go ahead and drill the holes. Next, take your nuts, bolts and washers, put them into the pre-drilled holes and tighten them up. with the nuts, bolts and washers in, we can remove the tape and we're good to go. The next thing we're going to install is the front splitter, extensions and winglets. What you'll need to install the front splitter and extensions and winglets is an 8mm drill bit and a drill, 10mm ratchet spanner, 4mm Allen key or Torx bit, flathead screwdriver or a trim removal tool, and a 10mm socket and some clamps. First thing we need to do is remove all of the push clips and the 10mm nuts holding in the under tray. Now the diffuser has been removed, we need to remove one push clip from either side of the weather strip. Next, take the diffuser and your clamps and mount it in place and clamp it up tight. 10 seconds. Now that the splitter is clamped in place, take the two smaller bolts that come in your kit and insert them into the hole where the weather strip originally was, right here. Next, take your 8mm drill bit, drill all your holes, and we can insert the nuts and bolts. With the diffuser securely fastened, we can now reinstall the under tray. Take yourself some scissors or a knife, and you're going to trim away the excess bit of the weather strip that is protruding here. If you didn't option the extensions and winglets, skip ahead to the next part of the video. If you did, let's install them. If you option just the extensions, you're going to have one bag of bolts and washers with a single Chicago bolt for either side. If you option the winglets as well, you'll have a second bag, which is going to have some longer bolts. These are going to be used in place wherever you're going through both the winglet and the extension. The shorter bolts are going to be used for the two remaining holes on the extensions. Simply take your 4mm Allen key or Torx bit and start screwing them into the gold threaded inserts underneath. With all of the bolts loosely fastened, this is your opportunity to play around with the positioning of your extensions and winglets. Once you've got them positioned where you like, tighten them up and you're good to go. Next, we're going to install the side splitters and winglets onto the Kona N. All right, so the things you're going to need to install the side splitters are your drill and an 8mm drill bit, an 11mm drill bit, your 4mm Allen key or Torx bit, a 10mm ratchet spanner, ideally one with a flexible neck. If you don't have this, I really don't know how you're going to tighten the bolts because you need to access a very, very small part of the side skirt. And either a friend or some small spring-loaded clamps ideally to hold the splitter in place. So step one, we're going to take the side splitter and clamp it in place underneath the car. Alignment for the splitter is very, very obvious. There are a lot of cutouts underneath the vehicle that make it easy to see where you're meant to place it. All right, with the splitter clamped in place, we can now take our 8mm drill bit and pre-drill all of the holes. Now that we've pre-drilled all our holes, you can take a pen or texter and mark the holes that are going to need drilling out to 11mm, which are this one, and this one. Or if you can just remember that they are the only ones you can't reach through one of the small cutouts from here, Release the clamps holding the splitter up and drill out those 3 additional holes with the 11mm drill bit. Once you've drilled out your additional 3 holes to 11mm, take your jack nuts and your jack nut tool and install the jack nuts. If you haven't purchased the jack nut tool, you can watch our little tutorial on how to use the supplied Flow Designers jack nut tool here. Once you've got the jack nuts installed, clamp the splitter back in place and you can install the bolts and nuts. Next, take your 4mm Allen key or Torx bit and your bolts, and I like to put in the 3 bolts where the jack nuts were first, just to make sure that your placement was spot on. Now that we've got those 3 bolts loosely in place, we can go around and put the rest of the nut and bolt combinations in loosely, and then once they're all in, tighten them up.
Yeah, and we also wrapped his blue heat.
Oh yeah.
And we also color changed his older Ford.
Now that we've got the side splitters all bolted in place, tightened up nicely, we're going to take our winglets, 2 bolts and 2 washers, and insert them into the gold threaded inserts. Do remember, only use hand tools and don't over tighten these, because you can pull the gold threaded inserts out and it doesn't take a lot of force to keep them in place.